everybody, and welcome to the Malibu Pacific Church podcast. Hey, if you haven't listened to this past week's sermon yet, I would say press pause here now and go listen to that sermon so that this podcast makes a little more sense. But I'm not going to tell you how to live your life.
Well,
You know, we got a guest here today. We got Mr. Darren, everybody.
back in the hot seat.
Hot seat.
Now, the last time I was in the hot seat,
Uh-huh.
you were probing, man.
Mhm.
You went deep.
I went hard, man.
You went deep. And
I didn't mean to make you cry. Okay, I
no,
apologize.
I didn't cry, so that's definitely a plus. And then you went on vacation, and then I ended up sitting in your seat for hosting
Yeah,
for a minute.
that was fun.
But then you came back and took back the reins. The viewership has gone back up.
It
after
has.
that.
It
So-
has. Yeah,
so we're back.
We're now back to tens of people. Just kidding.
No, it's
Just
awesome.
kidding.
It's great to be here.
Really stoked. If you are here right now listening to this podcast, we are going to be talking about our Fear Not series. And Darren kicked it off on our Christmas season. How did that feel?
I did. Look, it's always scary kicking off a series because, I've got the content that I want to say, but then I've got to set it up so that everything that comes after me makes sense for everybody else as well.
And you got to leave a
it's
little
like,
content
well,
too.
yeah, and I've got to, still got to have some margin there. And now with the tight service times, especially with the first one, and I'm like, all right, I got to get through this, and I got to get through this. But it was great. It was really great kicking off this series, an exciting series too, as we kind of delve into the four fear nots that are in the narrative, the Christmas narrative, around the birth of Jesus. To Joseph, to Mary, to the shepherds. And super excited as we kind of delve into what fear is, how it can control our lives, what are the antidotes to that, how did these people that were obviously facing some anxiety and certain situations and different perspectives, and really how everything was going to change as a byproduct of that, and how they dealt with it and move forward. And so that's what we'd be talking about here for the next 3-4 weeks,
For the rest of the year.
literally. I know. Don't say it like that, man. How fast is this year gone?
Dude, blink of an eye.
Are we not in March? Like, what is going on?
I have no idea, man. All of a sudden I thought it was still Christmas from last year.
Seriously. But we got the run. Thanksgiving's over. I hit my Christmas weight a little early this year.
There you go.
It's good. It's good.
Well, I wanted to congratulate you for getting over a fear this past Sunday.
Come on.
And this is behind the scenes. That's what we do at the podcast.
Little BTS.
Behind, exactly. Darren's always used to preaching with a handheld microphone.
That's right.
All right. And this is, I believe, the first time.
The first time I've been preaching for over 30 years, right? So that was the first time that I've not had a microphone in my hand when I was preaching. And last time I was preaching here, I used the microphone. We had some audio issues, and I was like, you know what? I'm just going to commit to using the lavalier thing and little Madonna microphones that we use here.
Love it.
I was embracing my inner Madonna.
Little Britney Spears.
Yes. And actually it was fun. If you watch the video, it's you'll see my hands are doing weird things. I was doing a little Trump there for a minute. I was a few of these, I didn't know what was going on with my hands, but it was all good. It worked, and it sounded great too.
So funny. Remind me of Talladega Nights a little bit when you were talking about that. And he's like, I don't know what to do with my hands.
My hands. But
So
it was good. It was good.
Cool.
I'll commit. I'm committed.
I like it. See? We're all growing here at MPC.
You know
you see it? That's awesome.
Out of my comfort zone.
Well, that's big, man. Well, congratulations.
Thank you, sir.
Big
Thank
step.
You, sir. I feel I can check another thing off the list.
I feel like we got to get you a placard or something. I don't know.
Why not?
We'll get you something. All right. So you kicked off the sermon, and you're using the audio clip from Franklin D. Roosevelt.
Yeah, his famous statement. This is 1933 as his inaugural address, his first term. Now, 1933 America. This is Great Depression. Things are bad.
Yeah, it's very bad.
I think it's interesting, even historically, when we think about our world today, and that we consider the turmoil and inflation and all these types of statistics that we're being bombarded with from an information perspective, and everything seems so doom and gloom. But we easily forget that, man, historically, like, we're actually doing all right. Like,
we're doing okay
compared to what people were going through in that time, and the devastation, economic devastation, and then the personal devastation as a byproduct of that time. And Franklin Roosevelt came into that season in America, was kind of swept into power, landslide victory, and he began his inaugural address, and he made this famous statement that all of us have heard before: the only thing we have to fear is fear itself. But it doesn't stop there. It's the part that he goes on and he says that it's the nameless, unreasoning, unjustified terror which paralyzes needed efforts to convert retreat into advance. And that was the bit. I'd heard the first bit a number of times. In fact, Winston Churchill actually quotes Roosevelt during the Second World War. But that second part really outlines what fear really is: a nameless, unreasoning, and unjustified terror. And that's when I read that, I was like, man, that totally it's a great way to, like, what is fear? That's what it is. It's got no name. It can't be reasoned with,
Totally.
And you can't justify it. Why do I feel these things? It doesn't make any sense. And then he goes on to say, and it paralyzes the efforts to turn a retreat into advance, or to take it the other way. It takes away our capacity to be able to shift from backward momentum into forward momentum.
Totally.
And that's exactly what he was addressing coming in. Hey, as a country, if we stay in this place of fear, we aren't going to be able to make the decisions and choices and to advance our economic proposition, the position of the country, the issues with poverty that we're facing the country. And out of that, we all know the kind of the New Deal was all a byproduct of that really launched, and the public works that really he kind of, our highway systems, all kinds of things. I mean, I'm fascinated with American history, so
I love it.
And I had to pass a citizenship test to become an American citizen. So that was a number of years ago. So it was funny when I was doing it. You got to learn all these facts and all civics facts, and then you literally have, like, you go and you have a test, and it's an oral test as well.
Oh wow!
Like, you're standing there, and the person's asking you questions. There's 10 questions out of a possible 150 questions.
Wow!
So there's 10 questions, and you have to get 6 right. So it's like,
how many did you get right?
Well, I got the first 6 right. So after that,
then you're done.
They say, "Oh, well, you passed." Like,
nice.
So that was good.
That's good.
But yeah, so I'm all full bottle on American civics. Don't ask me a question.
Oh man, I love that. When you're really talking about fear, and even with those quotes and thoughts, I kept thinking about my 1.5-year-old son who has fears. Where we've never instilled anything like that. It just was like in his DNA of, like, he doesn't like to be in the dark by himself. I mean, I don't know who anybody does, to be honest, but he gets scared, and I'm like, oh, he's only 1.5, and it's like somehow that's creeped into him. So where do you think fears like that come from? Where do you think fears, or like the random one of, people are afraid of heights, or people are afraid of, what is your thought process on those types of fears?
I think naturally we tend to be afraid of things that we don't understand.
Ooh.
So we have a natural inclination to not be drawn. Let's put it the other way. We have a natural inclination to be drawn to the things that we are familiar with. And I think then on the other side of it, we have a natural inclination to be afraid of things that we're unfamiliar with. And that's why some people are afraid of the dark, and it creeps up. Why? Is because I can't see the thing that gives me confidence, my ability to be able to see and know what's coming. Now all of a sudden that goes away. And I think that those are kind of, it's that lack of familiarity with that is what causes us. And so that's why you have, I don't know if you've ever been like into a major city with skyscrapers and seen guys washing the windows on the outside. I mean, I get afraid just looking at them doing that. But somehow I don't know that they were people that one day just decided, hey, I don't want to hang off the side of a building.
Yeah.
There's probably a lot of reasons why you become a window washer. None of them are that I want to abseil down the side of buildings. It's most probably because there's an economic reality. There's a job or an opportunity came about.
Yeah.
And, I imagine the first time they slung their leg over the side of a 50-story skyscraper, they were, panicking.
Totally.
But, 10 years later, they're swinging like this. This is every day.
It's fine now.
It's no big deal. And I think, so it tells us two things, right? I think there is we're naturally afraid of things that we're unfamiliar with. But number two, humans have this incredible capacity to actually get used to things. So things that we once were incredibly afraid of, that we can actually normalize and make we can overcome our fears. And so I don't think God never designed us to be in a state of fear. In fact, even as we talk about this subject matter, like fear isn't in and of itself is not sin, right?
Yeah.
It's not like, oh, if I'm afraid, then I'm a bad person. Or if I'm afraid, then I lack capacity. Or if I'm afraid, I'm weak.
Yeah.
That's not true at all. Fear is an emotional response to a set of circumstances. And so to feel afraid or to be fearful is not a bad thing in and of itself. In fact, sometimes it's a very helpful thing. If a bear is rushing towards you, a little bit of fear goes a long way.
Absolutely.
A small child who wants, I think we've all seen that, that meme with the little girl. There's a bear in the backyard, and she goes, "A dog! I want to pet the dog.
I want to pet the dog. It's a dog."
The parents going, "No, it's a bear." It's like, no, there is this natural sense of not being afraid of something, that actually having some fear is actually healthy.
Yeah.
To actually, to keep you off the edge.
Yep.
And so there is such thing as healthy fears.
Totally.
The question really is less about am I afraid or do I have fears? It's like, how is fear factored into my decision-making process in everyday life? And that's where the Bible has a lot to say. And that's really, when we are deconstructing these stories over these next few weeks, there is an instinctive fear response that really the angels who are making these declarations and are speaking to the characters, to Joseph, to Mary, to the shepherds, are addressing their natural impulse to be afraid of what's going on, and addressing that so that they aren't responding to what God is wanting to do and say in their lives from a position of fear, but rather saying, "Hey, it's going to be all right. God's got this." And so don't be afraid. God's making a way. He's created a pathway forward. And so that natural response that you have, normal, natural. Yeah. The reason that the angels kind of were up front with it is because it was reasonable that they were responding that way.
Totally.
Like, it wasn't like this unreasonable response.
Yeah.
It was, and I mean, Amy is going to be preaching this Sunday, and she's got an incredible word about Mary, and really, I don't want to go into it because it's really good stuff. You're going to want to tune in.
That's cool
for the next one. But yeah, so I think fear is very natural. Really, the pivotal issue is how we respond to it. And I think I closed with that Winston Churchill quote, which is such a great one. And he said, "Fear is a reaction, and courage is a decision."
Yep.
And I think that just encapsulates the whole thing I'm saying right now, is that we don't want to be people that are just reacting.
Yeah.
Because if we are reacting, then we're living our lives based on things we don't control.
Completely.
And circumstances, we all like to think we're in control, but you only have to get a few years into life before you realize, hey, there's a lot about what's going on here that I have no control over.
Totally.
So when fear comes, and it inevitably will, how am I going to respond to that? Am I going to just react to it? Or am I going to allow courage, which is what the investment that God is wanting to put into each one of us? Am I going to have courage to be my decision-making process?
Yeah, that's awesome.
And that's why, even to go back in the biblical story of, and we always find our way back to the children of Israel, right? So it's as they were heading into the promised land, God's word over their leaders and over the nation was to be bold and courageous, be bold and courageous, be very bold and courageous.
Mm-hmm.
Why was God speaking that to them? It's because they weren't feeling very bold nor courageous.
For sure.
It was because, man, there's a lot of things. We're going to cross over the Jordan, and on the other side of this is a lot of big cities and big armies and people that, man, this isn't going to be easy.
Nope.
But God's word was not to, again, just like the angels, is don't let fear overwhelm you, but let's be people that allow boldness and courage to rise up.
Yes.
And that becomes our decision-making process.
Absolutely. Another portion, a really big portion of the sermon, I think about 80% of it, was trust.
Yeah.
Man, I loved what you said about we don't learn to trust. It is our default.
Yeah.
Because, again, that brought me back. See, I'm talking about my 1.5-year-old again.
It's so true.
Dude, he'd like, homeboy will just jump off a couch. Dad's got me. And and I know one day it'll be too fast and I might drop him. They'll never do it again.
And then he won't do it again.
Yeah, but, I mean, he's just all like, go, 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 go. And I just love that it's just in our default.
Well, it's so true because we are created by God for interdependence.
Yeah.
Let me just think about that. Like, God created us not to be lone rangers, but he created us to be dependent on him and interdependent with one another.
Totally.
And we talk about a lot in church. It's that there's a vertical relationship and a horizontal relationship. The image of the cross speaks to what Christ has done is to restore us both vertically with God and horizontally with one another. So that's what grace is required, not just to enter into a relationship with God, but so that you and I can get along.
Totally.
Like our ability to have grace for one another is actually the fuel for our relationship and our friendship, right? So, so there is this interdependence that exists between one another, and that's why we are designed by God to walk in trust with one another, and to trust one another. And kids have it in spades.
Yeah,
like they get it, and it's interesting that the process of maturity.
Yeah.
Is actually the process of learning to distrust.
Like, that is really funny.
Like as we become more mature, we become
like, don't trust that.
We don't we trust less and less, not the other way around.
Yep.
And yet, and that's why Jesus was so forthright in his communication when it came to children. He would always remind us that actually the true faith that we're wanting to live in is one that a child has. Yeah. Not one that has been dismantled and disfigured by our experiences and our our circumstances. But if we can get back to that state, that's when we're able to put our whole and complete trust in God, and we can learn to trust one another and to be able to walk in that. Yeah. And because it's so completely true that there's so many things that we do every day that we trust. Yeah. We have, you trust that when you turn the light switch on at home, that, somewhere in the other side of the country, there's a power station that, is generating electricity. How many people had to do their jobs? Yeah. So that when you flick that light switch,
it turns on.
Like it turns on. Yeah. Like, and only require one of those people in probably the 100,000 people that are in that chain to not do their job properly, and that doesn't happen. We just expect these things happen all the time.
Or like a cell phone, call or something like that. 100%. Yeah, same thing.
There's so many things that we just intuitively go, oh, this will work, this will work. And I mean, the one that I talked about on Sunday with the driving one.
Dude, you messed me up. I was just about to say that.
When you think about what you're actually doing on the road, it's crazy that we do it. We don't even think about it. And yet we are literally like a tiny movement away from death at all times.
All times. All times. And you have to believe in everybody else on the road. It's the same. It's not when you said that, when I pulled out of the church parking lot, I was like, dang it, Darren. Oh, man. Because, I mean, I heard something like that on a different podcast with Dax Shepard. And he was just talking about, he's like, do you think our brains were ever created like so that we would be able to drive 100 miles per hour in this little tiny box? Yeah. Or fly in an airplane going 500 miles an hour, like what are we taking in our brains, and how are we developing and how are we evolving to be able to do those things? Because 150 years ago,
none of that was on the table.
None of it. So it's just wild,
and I
man.
think that's a thing. I think what it shows is that what it showed me is that we have actually a deep capacity to trust.
Ooh.
Much more than we think we do. Because we do it in everyday life. And so I wonder then, why do we find it so hard to trust God sometimes? Like, we extend trust to people that we don't know every day as we drove to work today. You extended all kinds of trust. Faith in the person that's coming the other way wasn't going to do a tiny movement on the steering wheel and send you to heaven. Totally. So we live this way, and yet sometimes we find it so difficult to trust God.
Yeah.
And so difficult to allow ourselves to, and we let the fear of the circumstances and anxieties come upon us and really drive our thinking and our thoughts and the narrative that we build up in our mind about who God is and who other people are, and it all plays out in such a negative way in our lives. Yeah. And really, if we can get past that and really learn to trust God at a foundational level with our lives, what could that produce? What more could I do? Yeah. If you think, if I let the fear of driving stop me from ever getting in a car again, how would that limit my life? Yeah. Like, just on a really, just practically think about it right now. Like, how would that limit my life if I didn't drive? I didn't go in a car ever again. My world would get really small really fast. So then I wonder, what am I doing in my life and not trusting God that is limiting my life?
Ooh, like, that is a good question.
Things that I'm doing. If a simple thing like driving a car could change my world in an incredible way, like what could I unlock if I just trusted God more in my life? Totally. Like, what is it I could unlock with that? And those are the kind of things that I love to consider and just go, man, there's so much more that God wants to do if I would just be willing to step into this zone of just trusting Him more.
Absolutely. Yeah. Wow. Well, there you have it. That's the opening of the Fear Not series, man. Pretty home run right there. Yeah. Are you starting to feel more at home and everything too at MPC?
Loving it here at MPC. There's just so much going on, and right. And it's not just the great programs that we have here that we do. It's not just the great sermons and the great environment here at the church, but it's the community and the relationships, getting to know new people, building new friendships. Totally. That's I'm really loving that. Awesome. And I just want to encourage everybody, like, if you've never set foot on the campus or you've just been here a few times, hey, this is a place where there are just a bunch of people that love one another, love Jesus, and delight in building connections and relationships. Completely. And that is, I think it's one of the greatest joys of being a part of a church community like this. And I'm reveling in it. I'm awesome. I'm loving it, enjoying it, meeting new people. I'm still struggling with people's names. So, but I have the Australian advantage with that. You do. Because I can just call everybody mate.
You call them mate. And it's you're good. Yeah. I say dude.
Dude.
Even if it's a girl.
Right. That's the Cali version.
Yeah.
Right?
Hey, dude. I love it.
Awesome.
Well, thank you so much, Darren, for an awesome sermon. We look forward to you preaching again next month.
Yeah. I
2
think
months?
sometime in January, but don't quote me.
Okay. That's awesome. He's also going to be leading some music for us as well, which has been doing amazing stuff with that too. So thank you, Darren, and all you bring to the table. Awesome. Dude, it's so much fun to have you here. And on top of that, if you haven't hit the subscribe button yet for this podcast, hit that subscribe button right now, or press the share button to somebody who needs to hear this, or share this past week's sermon who's someone who maybe has a little bit of fear on their heart. Because I'll tell you what, one text message can really turn somebody's life around. Be that person. I want you to not be afraid to send that text message to somebody. Let's go. All right. With that said, thank you again for listening to the podcast, and we'll see you next week on Tuesday for a new episode. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.